you're taking fucking steroids? And I was like, well, I need something.
When I first told my mom I was wanting to be a bodybuilder and taking steroids, she was kind of like, well, what's your end goal with this? I'll just use steroids until I'm 230 pounds. And then I was like 230 pounds in 6 weeks. And then I'm like, well, shit. We would go to GNC. We'd get 4 guys to split on a tub of this stuff called horsepower. And it was one of those pre-workouts where if you take it and you'd fucking shit your pants violently and then go train.
Those were the best, dude.
It tasted like fucking rat piss, foamy and fucking didn't mix well. The formulas were not great. They weren't really well versed in the actual performance supplements yet. One guy would keep in his gym bag and we'd all train together and all fucking take it. All go share stalls and play battle shits and then fucking train, you know?
Good old days.
To feel the good at its highs, you also have to feel the bad at its lows. And that's one thing that when I got on the other side of bodybuilding, my career felt like it happened so fast. And I honestly remember not very much of the moments because I pushed away all the shitty stuff happening. So then the highs even themselves didn't feel that exciting because I was at this monotone level in the middle instead of really embracing the highs and the lows and learning from them as they came. So if there's one thing I'd say to people is don't be afraid to feel and like sit in the shit sometimes and let it better you. The more you can sit in the shit, the more you'll be able to easier move through it. And the more the good moments, you'll be able to actually enjoy them.
Everybody, welcome back to the second episode of Ian. So we are on part 2 here. We're going to get into a lot of great topics. So around the table again, we got Zach B, Nick J, Lance H, myself, Zach D, Luke behind the camera, and Ian up in Canada, I guess. Welcome back to the D2 podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for
do
being
the intro
here.
again.
Yeah. Well, hey, for part B, if someone just tunes into this episode and didn't see episode 1,
go back to part 1.
Go back and watch it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so welcome back. So where were we? We were just talking about something. What were we talking about?
Zach, you had that question, right?
Yeah. So we were just talking about bodybuilding. I wanted to ask, so you said you were smoking more so like when you were bodybuilding and competing and things like that. Do you contribute your successes to cannabis?
Your successes. I want to shout out Cannabis real quick for this fucking Arnold Classic.
I'll say no, but I think at the time it was a valuable tool for me. I mean, I definitely got to a point where obviously the amount of food I was eating especially was really fucking hard for me to eat. Like, when I'm 300 pounds and like, the amount of food was very daunting, and like years and years of that, it definitely became like more mentally strenuous for me to like get all that in. So that's really when I started smoking was like, to get the fucking food in,
Right.
Like I had a few years there where a year and a half, 2 years where it was like, getting in as much food as I could without it became very, very difficult. But I definitely did notice like, my sleep definitely suffered, but my food, getting my ability to eat got a lot better. So I was like, okay, let's try this for a while and see if this is like a trade-off that helps me improve my physique, right?
Have you ever smoked before training?
I have a couple times. And I like it if it's like, something like training arms or like something that's like fucking nice, but like doing it before legs or something is just something I don't do.
Bro, you gotta try. You gotta come do a leg day with Nick and I when we get high beforehand. These are fucking sick.
This is what happens. It's probably not the best habit of a friend group, but we have those like gym rituals. Okay, sure. Fuad's gym rituals. Talking shit with Paul, mixing pre-workouts, sitting down at this gym before they go train. We'll all show up to the gym usually around the same time. And we'll all just, most of the time, have a joint on us. And if we all know to go to the back of the gym, go out by the train tracks, and if one of us is there, and the story is most of the time when we smoke, it's always like 2 joints in before a leg day. To the point where you can't feel like a pain threshold. And it's became a problem at this point where we all depend on each other to bring weed. And we all have one. So we've all gone out there and smoked 3 joints before a training session sometime.
Oh, yeah, I could.
And oh my God, it honestly gets to a point where you want to keep doing it just for how much the pain gets blunted.
The mind-muscle connection and the pain threshold is that those are the key points. The mind-muscle connection is through the roof, and the pain threshold
I agree with that,
disappears. Yeah. You didn't do a leg day on it?
I've done it, but I didn't like it. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, like workouts where I felt like it was like really demanding, like physically, I found it didn't help me. Ones where it was like, just fucking like an arm pump or a chest or like something just like you really want to fucking feel that and like the connection, like you said, it's definitely improved. But like things where I felt like I needed like a lot of like cardio exertion and like fucking just to be there, I found it hard for me for sure.
The panic of a heart attack?
Yeah, just like I just didn't feel like I could give it quite as much as I could without it, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I had one of my in-person people go to Florida this week, and I was like, oh, how was it? And he was like, yeah, I was pretty drunk most of the weekend. And I was like, oh, so I assume you didn't work out this week, right? He was like, oh, no, I did. I'm like, oh, really? So he was like, yeah, I went to the gym like a little tipsy and a little drunk.
Oh, my God.
And he was like, it actually kind of helped. I didn't really feel pain. I'm like, I don't advise that.
We drank like 2
but I'm happy you went to the gym.
You guys remember when Four Locos used to just put you out? We drank a couple Four Locos before our football practice one time.
Why the fuck would you do that?
Dude, we were dumb.
Four Locos.
Yeah.
Only you.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get back to bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Anyways,
terrible.
I wanted to ask you about, so we talked about like as you were moving through your career. Now, when does C-Bum and coaching him come into that? Like you've now, I don't know the timeline. So you're in your pro
early
in your pro career, or even
before my pro career.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because I met Melissa in 2012. I turned pro in 2014. So I was kind of like in the hiatus between like I had done my junior career. I'd won the Canadian Nationals as a junior in 2011. And I was not competing in 2012. You know, that's when I broke my arm wrestling and done all these kind of things. So I was kind of like out of bodybuilding for a little bit. And I'd met Melissa, and at this time, like, you know, 2012, Chris is like 16, 17, you know, like he was in, you know, he was a junior in high school, right? So he was like a young kid. So yeah, I mean, it started, you know, kind of like he was already into training, and he was definitely like, you know, the freak that would become Chris had already started to develop. I mean, you know, he looked like a man amongst children, like compared to his high school friends, you know, like he was already like 220 pounds with like abs and like, you know, at like 16, then he was like strong and stuff like that. But he didn't have really any idea what he was doing per se. Right. You know, he was just training hard and like eating fucking chicken and rice meals and kind of just like doing his thing, you know? And he was like obviously fully natural at this point. I mean, he was a young kid, right? So yeah, I mean, it was when I started getting back into competing in 2013, you know, and me and him started to train together more, as my relationship with Melissa, like, you know, was serious at this point, you know, and then I was closer with her family and being around them more. So then, yeah, I started training with Chris, and then, yeah, him and Melissa both competed and did their first show in 2014. Yeah. Same year I turned pro, they started competing. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is crazy. So how old was Chris then at that point for his first show?
First show, he would have been 19. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that iconic picture of you guys in that college frat house. And I was like, damn, like that's how young they were.
No, that's in my house.
That's in your house?
It looks like a college frat house. We were having a fucking, it was like a party for my birthday or something like that. But yeah, that would have been in 2012. That would have been like within the first couple months that, you know, me and Melissa were hanging out and stuff like that. So yeah, we were all fucking getting drunk at my place. Yeah.
But like even him just standing there, you could kind of tell that like he was.
Oh yeah, he was Giga Chat already for sure.
Yeah, he was of stature.
Giga Chat.
100%.
How did you approach that coaching for him? Did you like, were you just learning through yourself?
It wasn't like it wasn't like an approach thing. It was just like the natural evolution of, I was already a bodybuilder. He wanted to get into that world, and I was just the guy that was there, you know, like, and I just, you know, we started training together more, and I helped him more, and, you know, and then it just kind of flowed naturally. I mean, there wasn't like any conversations of like, will you coach me or anything like that. It just kind of like, it is what it was. Like when him and Melissa went to compete, I was just the guy that was there, you know, like we were all together all the time. We were training together all the time at that time. So it just was like the natural evolution of like, you know, I was the guy that was a few years ahead in my journey. Like, look, at that point, I still had no idea what I was doing from a coaching standpoint. Like, I thought I did, but like when I look back now to like what I thought was smart, like it was just like I had no idea. You know, like I was just figuring it out at the same time everybody else was. You know, I just had maybe 2 or 3 years more knowledge in me than they did. So yeah, it just was kind of that natural process of us all being together. You know.
What a great first coaching experience, though, is coaching in early stages of
you literally had
C-Bum and Melissa.
You had Michael Jordan of bodybuilding.
Yes. I know. But the thing is there, though, like when that first started, there was no classic physique yet. Like classic physique didn't come out till 2016. Right. So like, yeah, I knew Chris would be a good bodybuilder, but like I was still a better bodybuilder than he was, you know? So it was like, you know, he would go to the, you know, provincial level show and like, you know, he'd come fourth place in the heavyweights, like even one year him and Regan beat him at one show, and then Chris beat him as well. And then it was like he was a good bodybuilder, and like you knew he would be good. But to say I had any idea that he would end up like he was, and obviously the classic physique division, like finding his place in that, changed the trajectory a lot. Like I still think Chris would have been a good professional bodybuilder, and maybe with the social media, same things would have happened. But obviously the classic physique division is a lot of that part of that equation, because he was like the right guy at the right time that fit that look. That there was so many things that kind of came in there, and he succeeded so quickly in that division. That if obviously that hadn't come to be, that division didn't exist, the things would have definitely looked a lot different for sure.
When you were just like helping Chris and at this point of both your careers, was this at a point where you were already established at like coaching other people and putting other people on stage too? Or not yet?
I was starting to. Like when I first started coaching him and Melissa, I wasn't doing a ton of coaching. And then kind of in like 2014, 15, 16, I started doing like a ton. Yeah. So like I had some clients and like I was doing some stuff. But like, I became like a full, like that's what I did to support myself kind of in that 2014 to 2016, 17 years, until I started making good enough money as a pro bodybuilder that I just became a full-time pro bodybuilder, not coaching,
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I remember that back in the day when you were with MHP. Holy cow!
No, Chris was with MHP.
Oh,
yeah.
Chris was with MHP.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
damn.
I was never with MHP. He was with MHP for a while. That was like the first contract he ever got, and that's like where he met, Matt Thompson, like Matty Milkshake, the guy that's like his. Works with him still. He's with Raw and Bum Energy, and works with Chris very closely in a lot of his endeavors. So, Matt's still around. He was Chris's athlete manager at Raw at MHP. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was your first contract with?
My first contract where I got paid was with a Canadian company called ANS.
Got it.
But I was before that, I had a short stint. Like the first contract I ever signed where I didn't like get paid or anything was with GAT.
Oh man.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So I was with GAT like as a brand ambassador, where I was young, like I'd get free product and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then I was with a company called iForce for a little bit. And then I probably would have stayed with iForce a lot longer, but then I obviously got in contact with GAT, with ANS, and then they actually offered me money as I started to, become a little bit better of a pro bodybuilder. So this would have been 2016 I signed with ANS.
Yeah.
And then I was with them from 2016 until I signed with Raw. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
So for 5 years, from 2016 to 2021, and then I'm still with Raw now. So realistically, I've only been with kind of like two companies my whole career. With ANS for 5 years, and then with Raw for 5 years, and that's kind of been
good.
all of it.
Yeah.
That's crazy, actually.
When you were coming up and there was all those crazy pre-workouts, what was your go-to? Like Jack 3D, NO Explode? Did you
1MR. Yeah, the OG 1MR was like the
I
go-to.
remember that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
Ian, I used to be the type of kid in high school. I'd take this company was called like Spartan Labs. They made like pro hormones and stuff.
Sure.
I never would dabble into those, but their pre-workouts, they had the DMAA in it. So I'd be like 14, 15 years old. And I would, my mom is a high school teacher. So I'd go to school early with her, train what I thought like a bodybuilder in the morning. And I remember some of these workouts would be so euphoric from this pre-workout. Because it's like an amphetamine. Like I was fucking focused.
Yeah.
And it got so bad. It was a habit for me to bring an extra shirt around midday at school, because I would just get the craziest cold sweats, and I would I would turn
Coming
white.
down off all these
And
fucking stims.
Dude, it was so bad. I did it for months on end, and then after school, I'd take it again before training with the team or football practice. Like and then I took it off the market, and it was fucking pissed.
I used to black out on the 1MR. I would every time we'd hit a top set, I would black out, and I thought that was just part of lifting.
When I started like weight training and stuff, like when I was still like in high school, kind of doing the football stuff, this was like back in the day when supplements really sucked still, like flavors were terrible and stuff like that. And the first one, me and my buddies, a couple of my buddies and me that all trained together, we would go to GNC, because that's all like there was at the time. GNC was like the only supplement store that really existed. And we would go there and like we'd get 4 guys to split on a tub of this stuff called Horsepower. I can't remember who it was made by, maybe Ultimate Nutrition. And it was like one of those pre-workouts where it's like you take it and you'd fucking shit your pants violently and then go train, Yeah.
Those were the best, dude.
Yeah. Tasted fucking brutal. It could be like a fruit punch that just tasted like fucking rat piss, or like, this was in the days when every supplement company had 2 flavors, fruit punch or blue raspberry. That's all that existed, and they were so bad. Like, foamy and fucking didn't mix well, and the flavors were terrible, and like the formulas were like not great. All they did was put a ton of stimulants in them. They weren't like really well versed in like the actual performance supplements yet, things for vasodilation and actual performance and stuff. So yeah, I remember that. It's like we'd have 4 guys getting like $10 each in to put in a fucking horsepower. And then we'd like one guy would keep in his gym bag, and we'd all train together and all fucking take it and all go share stalls and play battle shits and then fucking train,
Yeah.
The smaller, good old days.
That was back in the day. The smaller the scoop, the better.
Oh yeah.
Now it's like the bigger the scoop, the more good shit.
I remember back then too, like a lot of the supplements were like everything was in tabs, like in tablets, like hard pressed tablets.
Yeah.
So like even if you get like, I remember back then, Muscle Tech made like it was Kick or Lutor, one of these ones. It was like an amino acid tablet, but you take like 15 tablets to get what's like the equivalent of like 1 gram of amino acids now. Would be like this much in a fucking scoop of today's products. But I remember this one, and it was on the label for it, like it was like ultimate anabolic and this stuff, and I didn't even know what the word anabolic meant, so I googled it and started saying things about steroids. So then everyone thought I was on steroids because I told them like, oh yeah, I'm taking this new supplement, it's anabolic. So it was like this rumor went around that like Iain was using steroids when I was fucking like 17.
Did you ever see those? Did you ever see those pre-workouts when SARMs were like super early on, where they would put like LGD SARM in pre-workouts?
Oh yeah, I mean those things came, and we had that back in like my days of starting bodybuilding. It was the M1Ts.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. So like the methyl M1Ts was like the thing where you could go to like the shadier supplement stores, and they'd fucking sell you M1Ts and like get shit like that. I heard that was the big one, or like one Andro was a big thing, like the shit like Mark McGuire and stuff we're taking now.
From
like those are the ones that went around. Yeah.
Steel had that shit, and I remember I ordered it to my house, and my mom and dad found it. They fucking lost their shit when they Googled it. My mom's like, "You're taking fucking steroids," and I was like, "Well, I need something."
That's so funny.
I remember when I first told my mom I was like wanting to be a bodybuilder and taking steroids, and she was kind of like, well, what's your like end goal with this? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I'll just use steroids until I'm 230 pounds. And then I was like 230 pounds in like 6 weeks. And then I'm like, well, shit,
260. Let's try again.
At 230, 240, 250, 260, 290, 300, But like to me at that time, when you're, 210, 230 seems like Ronnie Coleman, I'm like, when I'm 230, I'll be fucking big enough, and like I'll be good there, and then you get to 230, I'm like, I feel the exact fucking same. What the fuck, like I'm a little bigger, but not that much bigger,
When my
gotta keep going here,
When we started dating, me and Rally, she wasn't into bodybuilding or nothing. She didn't really know about it. She's like when, and she just thought I was on TRT. So I would just say, yeah, I'm on TRT. I was like 21. She's like, well, when are you going to compete again? And it's after my first show. I'm like, yeah, when I'm 230, I'll compete again.
Yeah.
And then you realize just the unrealisticness of like, holy shit, that happened really quick.
Yeah, and you're not much bigger.
Exactly. So
I work in the corporate world, and it's good because like people don't understand what steroids look like.
And
then I'll be standing in a room like giving a presentation. And afterwards, there's always like one of the 50-year-olds brings me aside, is like, "Where are you getting it?" I'm like, I can hook you up, Rise. I'm like, go get your blood work done with Rise, and you'll get some testosterone.
A lot of the questions,
sweet juice. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say a lot of the questions that I would like over here in Mexico, or we got asked in Mexico, was like, some kid asked us at a Q&A, asked Samson directly. Yeah, he was like, we all know we've been talking about nutrition. He spoke English pretty good, nutrition, training, all this. But what are you guys really taking? And he asked that in front of the entire place, and then like it was answered. We answered it the correct way, but I thought to myself, I'm like, bro, it's Mexico. Steroids are fucking legal here.
Yeah, take whatever.
Like, what are you? Why are you asking us?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good time. Anyways, we love juice.
Can you emphasize on how important it is to get blood work done, though, if you're going to take them?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, when I started competing, that wasn't even like a conversation, like it wasn't, no one got blood work back then. It wasn't like a thing people talked about. I mean, and I think that's why you've seen like kind of especially a bigger wave of guys, that are like before me, and then kind of ending with my generation of like guys that have had a lot of like serious health ramifications, because it just wasn't like something that was talked about or done. Like, it wasn't that they were, they were pushing the gear and stuff, but it's because they didn't have any data to say that they were necessarily doing themselves that much harm,
Right, yeah.
Like, I mean, so it's a conversation that really came more like later in like 2015, 16, 17, like later, even later than that, to be honest. So, I mean, yeah, it's super important. I mean, from two standpoints too. I mean, one, obviously, an unhealthy body is not as responsive of a body. Like, you know, like even from burning body fat, like if your liver enzymes are jacked to the fucking ceiling, even things like burning body fat are going to be a lot more difficult, or like your blood glucose, or, you know, a lot of these things. I mean, things just even from a performance standpoint are going to be impacted. But then obviously there's like the long-term, you know, health and things like that are, you know, so important to keep an eye on. Like, you know, we all know that bodybuilding is not the best decision for your long-term health. Like there's obviously, it's, you know, with the food and the training and the anabolics, there is things that are definitely inherently very bad for you. But I mean, at least having the data and like trying to manage it the best ways you can possible is very, very valuable for sure. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just think it needs to be more appreciated, because I mean, I still hear guys all the time being like, I'm going to run gear no matter like what my blood work looks like too. And I'm just like, you got to have more of a strictness between, I mean, like, you know, what to do.
Guys say that until the reality sets in of what they've maybe done, you know, like when I think a lot of guys say that because you have this feeling of like invulnerability until then something actually happens and you're like, holy fuck, I'm actually like, I'm not invincible, you know, like I'm not invincible. Things can happen. And oh my God, I'm only 28 years old and my fucking, you know, like I'm having heart issues, or my kidneys are fried, or, you know, like you've been sitting at fucking crazy hypertensive blood pressure for fucking 4 years and didn't even know about it. You know, like these things that when they finally have an issue, then they've changed their tune of like, fuck, I wish I'd done this. I should have done this. And I guess it's better late than never to change your tune. But, you know, these are a lot of things that just, I think people put the wayside because they just don't even think that it will happen to them, you know?
Yeah. By them being illegal in the U.S., it's so stupid, because we could have been advancing like the conversations around steroids so much more, but because they're illegal, there's such a bad you know, like everybody looks at it as like this horrible, crazy, terrible thing you're doing, and it's cheating in every sport and blah, blah, blah. But if they had never like done this war on drugs in America, because like in Canada, how strict are the laws there? I guess I don't really know, but like
it's kind of like a gray area. Like it's technically, I don't think possession of steroids, if there's not like an intent to distribute, is not illegal. So like if you got caught with a few bottles of test or steroids at your home, whatever, you're not technically breaking the law. But then obviously it's a gray area for them to kind of deem like, well, how much steroids is where you're potentially looking to sell it, or that it's just for you. You know, but then like say you're a pro bodybuilder and I have fucking 10 grand worth of juice in my house. It's like, well, this was all for me. Like it's kind of a tough thing. Yeah. It's kind of a tough thing. Like obviously manufacturing steroids and selling steroids are illegal. Like they are everywhere. But personal use is not technically illegal, I don't believe.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, because nowadays the conversation around it is becoming a lot more prominent in podcasts like this, like what you guys do on Bro Chat. And it's led to a healthier society around it, or at least a trend towards a healthier society, because people are talking about it. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Well, I think I knew somebody that was in a traffic stop and got some stuff confiscated from their vehicle. And what happened, like, and they found it because they were searching other things and shit, and none of it showed up, like, on court. Like they didn't care about the growth hormone that he had with him, and all this other shit.
We talk about how easy it is to fly with it, as long as you're not flying with it.
But it's like,
I mean, I have in Canada, it's like similar story to that, where, you know, a buddy, you know, basically been at the gym, and, you know, some guys were grabbing some stuff out of his car. He's training, just left his car unlocked so somebody could grab some stuff out of it, you know. And there was some cops sitting in the parking lot watching, or just having coffee or chilling, like between their fucking on their beat, you know. And they see this guy pull up in the parking lot, just go into the back of somebody's car, grab something, and drive away. So like, what the fuck is this? So then they went and they pulled him over, which they didn't really have grounds to be. So it's kind of like a sketchy area anyways. So they pull him over. They search the vehicle, which technically they wouldn't really be allowed to do. Because like, what grounds? Like, you don't know. He could have just been getting fucking his jacket. He forgot at his buddy's house. You don't really have a significant grounds there. So they pulled him over, checked the trunk and everything, found a bunch of gear. Confiscated it, didn't write him any kind of like ticket or like charge him with anything. Like there was nothing. They took all the stuff, and then one of our buddies who's a cop or something like this gets a text from his cop buddies with all the gear like laid on the table, say like say thanks to your buddy, and they were like just doling it up amongst themselves personally, you know. Like say thanks to your buddy for the fucking sauce, you know, fucking doling it up amongst them, you know.
Yeah, that's wild.
I honestly don't think even sometimes unless it's mass amounts, I feel like, and I've even heard from Milwaukee cops that they could care less about small amounts of even weed. You know
well,
what I'm
in
saying?
Whitewater they care.
Oh, in Whitewater, Lance got a
I
good
got in a
old
little
arrest.
trouble in college, so yeah. With
Yeah,
my
no,
stuff, so.
I've been there in Florida, so I know all about it. You know?
Yeah, fucking nightmare, dude.
That's
I should have
hilarious.
just like did a front double and been like, see, I don't use it.
Yeah, seriously.
It got planted in my room.
I was so nervous the first time I traveled with it. I had food in the front of my like normal Wolfpack bag, and the lady was like, "We're gonna search your bag," and I was like, "Damn it, fuck!" And so she unzips the front. She pulls like my first meal out. I didn't think she'd pull them out, and like 3 needles that are preloaded fall out on her hand.
Oh boy!
And she's like, "Oh, sorry," and she starts like shoving it all back in,
Jesus.
and then just zips it up. Like she got like visibly uncomfortable, so she just put it all back in and then just handed me the bag. I was like, all right, we're
Over
good.
prep last year, dude. Over
She did
prep.
not want to have that conversation.
For the amount of traveling I was doing on prep for just going to different states, I had all my health supplements, and one of my suitcases wouldn't fit all my health supplements, so I put them on my carry-on. Again, not thinking carry-on. That's where I had some of my just like oils or growth hormone, and they tested like all my kidney supplements. They tested all these pills. Didn't even take notice of the other stuff that was right underneath it.
Yeah, we're not gonna-
And I'm like, this is odd.
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
not
it
even
should be
sure if they
happening.
can actually
I don't
test
think they
for
care.
steroids at that. I don't.
Yeah.
I think they use as a fear tactic to try and get people to admit to something.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "Hey, like if this is steroids,
Yeah.
you better tell me because we're going to test it." So they want you to be like, "Okay, it is," because you think you're going to get caught anyways. But to my knowledge, I don't even know if like what they're checking when they swipe those little things is not for steroids. Like
No.
it's
Bombs, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like fucking bomb residue and maybe some kind of like hard recreational drugs. But I don't think they have any capacity to be like, this is because like, what is steroids? Is it check
Right.
for testosterone? Like which drug is it even testing for? Like it's such a broad spectrum that I don't think that's, they're just trying to fucking force you into admitting to something
Yes.
100%.
because they can't test it in the first place. You
And
know?
I honestly think that they could care less about some 20, 30-year-old's steroid addiction.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
They do
saying?
not
Like,
give a shit.
I
They don't
don't
give a
like
shit.
when it comes to traveling and safety, that's not even crossing their minds.
No.
But we kind of get in a like it's just an anxiety-ridden state.
it's a
you know, I think that's just
Well,
been
yeah,
perpetrated
you're
on
Yeah, I mean,
us.
I definitely know guys that have got in a lot of shit traveling with stuff at airports, even
really?
if it was small amounts of stuff. Oh yeah, for sure. Like guys that have
Wow.
been banned from countries and stuff like that because they had, one bottle of test on them or a few tabs of this or something. That definitely is. But I mean, it really depends who you get and what countries you're going to and things like that. But honestly, even in my whole career of bodybuilding, I've never flown with an injectable drug in my entire life.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
How do you travel then? You just get it wherever. You're going?
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically, you just get it wherever you're going.
Oh, that's crazy.
I've flown with oral stuff before, but I mean, with injectable drugs, I've never flown with anything like no growth hormone, no oils, nothing ever before. No.
I've sent it to where I'm
I was
going.
gonna say I started testing it pretty hardcore after I didn't get in trouble.
Yeah, you
one
guys are
time. I
fucking
just started
nuts.
flying with it like
My
loose in my bag.
anxiety would have been through the roof.
I've over prep. I would send it. Like I would ship it from where I was. To
That's true.
Hypothetically.
You have a lot-
Yeah.
Hypothetically, that's probably your best thing.
Hypothetically, yeah. Hypothetically.
As long as it's domestic, don't make the mistakes I've made.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we're talking about blood work and stuff like that. What's a message to current bodybuilders that you think is just like super important when entering their bodybuilding careers early on in their bodybuilding career? Can be anything, just like something that you'd say is like the most important thing the most important message that they could learn starting
Like
off.
pertaining to blood work or pertaining to like anything?
No, just
like,
anything. No, because we were on the talks of blood work, but as people are entering bodybuilding, what's like an important message you think they should understand?
It's tough because there's like a few different ways to look at this. Like,
Right.
Obviously there's the obvious answer of like fall in love with bodybuilding. Like if you don't love bodybuilding, like it's not going to be something that's sustainable and you're not going to ever get to where you want to go if you don't actually love like the pursuit of what you're doing. So I think you really need to learn to like fall in love with whatever it is. I think that's very important, especially something that is as monotonous as bodybuilding can be, because it's like day in, day out, like all the meals every day, like, things like that can be very like, tiring mentally on you. I think you need to really love it to want to do it at a high level like that.
Right.
And then obviously, going into the blood work conversation, I think there's just like, don't be afraid to like take the time it needs to get your health to the place it needs to be. Like if you're doing something and your health is going to the fucking wayside, like don't push that aside, like don't wait for something bad to happen to like make the changes that you need to do. Like, I know it's like the mindset that people look at now is like they want it now, so like, oh, it's already bad, I'll just push it a few more weeks and it'll be okay kind of thing. And look, there obviously is some reality to that. Like there's going to be times as a bodybuilder where your blood work is in bad spot and you're not just going to drop out of your show. But I think you really need to make your best efforts to try and manage that and keep it as good as you can for as much of the year as you possibly can, because over long term, like the more time it is in a bad spot, even if it rebounds, like say you do your show and then, 4 weeks after my blood work's perfect again. It's like, well, that doesn't mean you didn't have 6 months of that damage accruing while it was really bad. Just because it rebounded to a good spot doesn't mean that damage hasn't been done already,
Yeah.
So I think guys like, they'll, do their blood work once a year at the end of a season. They'll fucking gas it hard all year. They'll come off for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or come onto their TRT. Their blood work will be like, oh, everything's good. I'm good to go again. It's like, yeah, but like you said, you need to realize that it was in a really bad spot for months on end. So like the more years you add up of it being in a bad spot for majority of the year, is then when slippery things can start to happen in the long run, right?
Because you can't just look at the snapshot of that blood work. You got to look at the trends over time when it's.
Well,
like
exactly.
That's,
you need to look at it when it's at its best and its worst,
Its worst, yep.
and see kind of like what is the reality of the harm I'm doing to myself. And
right.
And look, and sometimes you need to be honest with yourself of like, some people's bodies just don't tolerate drugs well.
At all.
I've seen guys take fucking one cycle of fucking test and their blood work was like the worst I've ever seen it in my life. And I've seen guys, and I'll be honest, I'm one of them that has got away with a lot from like a health standpoint, like that I was a professional bodybuilder for a long time. And I really never had my blood work get that bad. That doesn't mean that tells you the whole picture. So that is obviously, I need to be honest with that too. Blood work does not tell you the whole picture. Like if you want to be, doing your cardiac scans and getting calcium scores done and stress tests and like, these things I think are more in depth in terms of getting your whole thing. I think blood work can give you a good starting point and can see a lot of things, but it can't see everything. So yeah, I mean, just don't let it get to that point in the first place, right?
Yeah. Right. Just coming from you, and just a lot of people look up to you, and they gain a lot of knowledge from you on this exact topic, and it may be different people hearing it from you versus hearing it from us. But if you, in your opinion, if somebody, blood work can be expensive, blood work can also be cheap depending on what you're getting, how much you're getting, frequency of it. If somebody's getting into bodybuilding and they're wanting to do things and as safe as possible, or just keep a clean bill of health trend over time, but also they don't have the money for constant blood work, how many times a year would you say, and when throughout the year, if they're enhanced, they should get blood work done to make sure they are continuing that clean bill of health?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because I don't want to give a number and then people be like, okay, well, I only need to do it twice a year,
Right.
Like you said, that's okay. So, like at minimum, I think 3 times a year would be like ideal. 2 to 3 like is bare minimum, like every 4 months, 3 months kind of thing.
Yep.
But like you said, I think it is important to see it. Don't be afraid to see it when it's at its worst. I think guys like run away from that because they don't want to see something that will make them be like, fuck, okay, I actually have to pull the plug here, or like I'm really doing some significant damage. So they kind of like just put that the wayside of like, I don't want to even see it. I'll do it at a time when I know it's going to look a little bit better. So yeah, no, I think that's definitely like the most important thing there for sure.
I think if they're limited on what they can spend on blood work, would you agree that one of the times that they should be seeing it is mid-cycle or right after a cycle, just for the fact that they now know how it affects them?
100%. Yeah.
If they can only get done
like
3 times, they should
when you're at the
least
your
one.
maximum load and you're like putting as much stress on your body, like see how your body is responding to that stress. When your food is at its highest, your body weight's at its highest, when your drug load is at its highest, like, okay, what is this doing to me? And then at least you can have an understanding. Cause like I said, it's the individual response is humongous variance on this, right? Like guys respond to that so differently from a response in terms of progress, but also a response in terms of health ramification standpoint. So, I think, there is a value in seeing it when it's at its best, but I think there's a lot more in seeing it when it's at its worst to be like, okay, what do I really need to be addressing here? Because sometimes, in terms of like adjusting your supplementation, your health regimens and stuff like that, we're doing that based off of the best, and we might be doing a lot less than we need to. If we were basing it off of the worst, then you might make a lot more interventions,
If I had 3 times throughout the year, one of those times to get labs done would be like when androgen load is at its highest. For you, like speaking on blood work trends, what's something looking back at your career that as you start to learn your body and you learn more about blood work, what's something that you were using that did affect your bill of health in a way that was noticeable to you? You're like, okay, this is something that I probably won't use anymore. Did you ever come across something that you wouldn't really continue to use?
I didn't personally, but like I didn't ever use anything like out of the normal, you know, like, there's obviously the answer is like, what are you going to see the most health ramifications for are the various obvious drugs, like super heavy oral cycles, taking the drugs like Tren, things like that are going to have more ramifications than running a fucking high dose of test or something, things that are going to, put a little more load on the kidneys or affect blood pressure in a different way. Like, things like that, or put more direct load on the liver from orals being processed through them. Like things like that are obviously going to be the most, harmful to the body for sure. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
How do you coach someone to be real with themselves when it comes to that stuff? Like, cause we all see those guys that like, it's definitely not working, it's hurting you. It's getting visible. Like, how do you coach someone to be kind of real with themselves when looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not easy. I mean, the best policy is honesty. I mean, be honest. I think there's a fine line to walk between just being like a dick and like shutting someone's wants and desires down and like their love to pursue something because like we still did it, Right. So just be like, hey, you're not going to get what you want out of this. Don't fucking do it. But like you talk to them, be like, hey, this is what I see. This is my opinion. Yeah. This is the kind of damage you're doing to yourself. I would have a really honest conversation with yourself of like, is this worth the trade-off? Right. And do if you don't get where you want to be, are you going to be okay with that? Right. Like, are you going to keep pushing until you cause something really serious to happen? Or are you going to be okay with accepting the realization of, hey, I might never get there, but I'm still going to enjoy this anyways. And I think a lot of people get caught up in wanting to be somewhere and then they push things harder and harder trying to get there when they don't just accept the reality of like, hey, I'm probably not going to get there. I'm cool with what I'm doing. I'm just going to enjoy competing at, at the amateur level. And I'm not going to push things to a level that I think is going to cause more harm, but might not still even get me where I want to go, I think
that's important coming from you, just hearing that. That was good.
Well, I think it's important because we all talk, like these guys are coaches and we all talk about like the conversations they have to go through and things like that. And we always talk about how being honest is so hard, but you have to do it in a world of coaching and coaches that would put, like some of them will just do it for money. Like they don't give a fuck, they might not pull blood.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely became a lot easier for me when like, when I kind of stopped coaching and I just had a couple, like, like even now, like I coach like 3 or 4 guys. I don't even know if any of them fucking pay me at this point. Like I just do it because they're guys I've coached for a long time and they've kind of just stuck around and, they're good dudes that I mesh well with. And then maybe they pay me here and there, who knows, you know what I mean? Right. So, but when there is less tie to it from like an emotional standpoint on your part, right? It does become a lot easier to have those. So I think separating yourself sometimes, and I think it's also something that clients learn to respect you for. So even if you lose some clients in the short term over it, one, you're doing the best, most like honest, honorable thing to them. So I think there is a lot of value in that. But 2, I think a lot of people, then if that reputation gets around that you're a guy that's like no bullshit and makes the right calls for clients and not afraid to have the tough decisions, I think that actually becomes a more attractive trait as a coach than it does as a detractor. Totally. And I think that's why a lot of people now, like, even though I don't coach, I get like 1,000 messages a week of people being like, please coach me. And why they're coming to that is, a lot of it is just because they know I like will be extremely honest with them of like, the things that they need to do or don't do or, and not like fucking beat around the bush, like they'll message me like, yo, I just need someone that's going to tell it to me straight and will push me in these kind of things. And, like has no, time for the bullshit of this kind of stuff. Like that becomes an attractive feature of a coach,
I think it becomes an attractive feature of, a coach, but also just the people that you want to have around you though.
Oh, for sure.
What I'm saying? Yeah. Like your friend group, your people in your family, your significant other. I think that's sometimes when I look at other friend groups from the outside in, I perceive that as something that can be missing and grateful that I have it.
I also sorry to interrupt. I also think it's something that creates like a level of trust that is then a two-way street with a client. You know, I think when you're very honest with them, I think that they become more honest with you, and it's easier to get someone progress when they're being as forthcoming with everything. You know, like if they feel the need to hide things from you and like all this kind of stuff, they're never going to get the progress that they want. Like if they're afraid that, oh, if I say this, you know, he'll do this or whatever. If you're just like honest with everything all the time, then they feel like they can be honest all the time. And I think it creates a lot more, you know, open lines of communication, a lot more success for sure.
Oh yeah,
you know,
totally. That answered one of our two of our questions from the Q&A. It was just that slew of things. Yeah,
I just think it's so important because we always talk on this podcast, but who are we? You guys are the big dogs, and we're thankful that you guys come around. But that reinforces the idea at this level, and to all the coaches that listen to this podcast, like, be fucking honest.
Yeah,
because there's too many people out there that are just trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
You know, ChatGPT coaches and shit like that'll put you on stage, but they could be killing you. Like, if they are not looking at blood work and they are not making that a priority.
And like I said, like, you don't need to be a dick to your clients. Like, you know, and I think a big part of coaching too is like learning how to talk to each individual as an individual and what makes them tick the best. You know, like some people respond to like the type of like just fucking blunt honesty and like sometimes just shit on them and like tell them the reality. And some people you need to tiptoe and like approach it a little differently, but still get the same message across. So, you know, I think that's a big skill as a coach is like, you know, knowing the individual and how to approach conversations with each one independently, you know?
Yeah, that's important.
There's a book called Emotional Intelligence. It's a great book. It's how you learn how to like.
No, because like, and I know for sure, like, you know, how when I was working with Patrick Tour, how he might talk to me, but versus talk to James or talk to another guy, it's probably all going to be very different, you know?
Yeah.
And like, or, you know, our coach, like when I was with Matt Jansen, like how me and Nick are two very different people, and like how he would talk to either of us would be very, very different, like the way he'd have conversations, but to maybe get the same point across. But like, you know, he knew us as personalities and like how to get the most out of us, you know? And sometimes people need like a soft touch, but still need to, you know, get the message across. And some people need the fucking tough love, you know? So.
Right. Fucking awesome. We're going to shift a little bit back into like current world bodybuilding.
Sure.
If you had to see Rough Diesel go against Mike the Badass right now, who's winning?
Mike the Badass.
Mike.
Right.
Yeah.
You think his size is there? Like too much?
Yeah. I just don't think Terrence has any like real tools against Mike, you know, like against someone like Jose. Yeah, he has a bit nicer shape. He's got a bit more sweep on the quads. You know, he has some assets against him. Even though Jose is a little bigger, this is classic physique. So like some things are weighted a little differently.
Right.
And even that, like in Pittsburgh, was a 1-point decision. So, you know, I think Mike just doesn't have those flaws. You know, he has more muscle than Terrence.
Right.
He still has beautiful shape. He gets an insane conditioning. So, you know, I think Mike is still the guy to beat. I would be, if I was betting money, I would definitely bet my money on Mike going into the Olympia.
So we talk about that. We talk about that distance that Seabum created, right? It was every year. It was like, okay, the distance is still pretty wide.
It wasn't last year though.
That's what I was. So that's what I was getting to. So how close do you think? You know, how many years do you think Seabum had if Mike was on his tail? Like
maybe one. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, you know, Chris was starting to show a little bit of chinks in his armor. You know, like he was still obviously a very elite bodybuilder, and I think you saw that even when he competed against Martin in Prague. Right. You know, so do I think he still could have like? I think if he knew his back was against the wall and like after doing that Olympia, like holy fuck, Mike took some points from me. I think that would have definitely fired him up to like, okay, I got to fucking level up here. Or like really keep pushing, like I can't let off the gas at all. Not that he ever did, but I mean, Mike is a really, really good competitor, and this crop of classic physique guys is getting really good.
Crazy.
You know, obviously, I want to bet my money on Chris every time, but like the reality is, like, you know, Mike and him split points last year. It wasn't like a clear cut decision, and if you're actually looking at like objectively pose for pose, you can make a case for Mike even winning last year. You know, like if you're really doing it pose for pose, like you might be like, okay, maybe, you know, a couple poses that one person might think one way, one person might think the other. And then that changes it from, you know, 3 poses to 4 or 4 poses to 3, like whatever, you know, it completely changes the dynamic. So, you know, he was definitely nipping on his heels. I mean, you know, where Chris started to lose a bit of volume in his legs and like things like that, you know, over time changed the shape of his, you know, flow a little bit, you know, where Mike is still very young and like is still growing and like this, you know, a lot more fresh muscle there, you know?
Sure. Wow. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Mike is like the next, I think he's the next king of.
Yeah, I just don't
classics.
see anybody that has any like tools to fight Mike with.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
like
totally
whether
agree.
there's like there might be guys with slightly better shape, but then Mike is way more muscular and gets in way better condition. And then there might be guys that are really in good condition with a lot of muscle that don't have his shape, but he kind of has everything, you know?
Yeah.
He doesn't have any poses that are weak. Like he's good from the front, he's good from the side, he's really good from the back. You know, like he doesn't really have any like significant things that someone can beat him on. So like to be able to beat Mike, you have to be a very, very complete guy. And I think the only way you're going to beat him is like someone like Chris, where you were in equal condition, you were just bigger and your shape is still excellent, you know? So like, it's going to take someone special to beat someone that good for sure. You know, cause like you look at Terrence, like Terrence has beautiful shape for sure. Really nice lines, you know, but Mike in terms of his overall muscularity is definitely a whole other level, you know, especially from the side and the back. Like, you know, Terrence is great from the waist down, but his arms and shoulders and back still leave a little to be desired, where Mike's don't, you know. There's a lot of good muscle back there. And from the side, he's just a lot thicker front to back with still really, really good lines, you know? So let's say Terrence can go toe to toe from the front, then I think it's just from the side and the back, it's just too much ground to make up for someone that still has such good shape, you know, where Jose is losing because like, yeah, he doesn't quite have the sweep on his quads and his waist isn't the smallest, but he poses around it really well. Mike doesn't have those issues, you know? So it becomes really hard, right?
For sure.
Yeah,
Speaking of bodybuilding and classic, like it can be classic or open this year for the Olympia. What's one out of this world prediction that you've got for the 2025 Olympia? It can be open, it can be for classic, it can be for I mean, an example, maybe Terrence beats Mike. Even though it may not be probable, but what's something that you could see?
Fuad had said Good Vito was going to be top 5. We know that ain't
Hell
happening
yes.
now. So
I don't think there's any chance
I
of
agree.
that. No.
Yeah.
Huh.
We only asked it to Fuad for open though, so you can answer it for classic too.
Yeah, I don't really see anything like outlandish happening. You know, like I think we've seen kind of like, you know, guys that have made an emergence, like, you know, I think Logan will be a little higher in the mix this year.
Yep.
You know, so obviously, you know, there's a wide open seat in classic that's a lot of guys are going to be fighting really hard for.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's going to really make the level of competition in the classic physique division really, really high this year. You know, I think everyone in that division that's kind of in that group is, you know, looking to establish themselves as the next guy after Chris. So, you know, you're going to have guys like Ramon and Urs and Terrence and all these guys like coming back with a vengeance.
Place?
I think Grego's definitely in the mix for a top 5. I mean, I could definitely see him making a first call out. You know, I mean, he beat a good version of Wesley this year. So, I mean, he's definitely a guy that can battle with any of those guys. You know, I think he isn't quite flow as well and isn't quite as like pretty and complete as some of the other guys. But I mean, he's got a lot of muscle. He gets in good condition. So, I mean, I definitely think he could be in that mix, you know? So I think he kind of falls in that group, like of, you know, 4, 5, 6, like kind of with Logan, you know?
Okay. Right. Yeah. So we have a lot of excitement for the male bodybuilding world. I did want to bring up though, cause you've been in person for like Pit Pro and stuff. The female, like, division bikini and wellness are like evolving.
Yesterday
are they
looked
not?
crazy.
Like are you seeing that in person? Because these bitches are getting huge.
Dude.
But in wellness, you're certainly seeing it. Bikini, and not so much. I mean, the girls, I think where you're seeing the improvement in bikini is more just a little bit in the conditioning standpoint.
Okay.
You know, I think they're just getting a little bit harder. I think it kind of goes back and forth.
Did you see the New York photo on like Bison? Did you watch the live stream yesterday?
Yeah.
Those I don't know. Those bikini girls looked huge. I thought they were wellness.
No, but I mean, like Amy Delgado, the girl that won it, she's fucking tiny. You know, like
Really?
she is
Okay.
very small bikini competitor. I mean, and Ivy and like these girls that are placing like in the top 2 of these shows. And, you know, I mean, Amy's probably one of the front runners for the Olympia as well. So, you know, they're definitely not big muscular girls by any means, but the level of conditioning has stepped up a bit more. So you're seeing a bit more capping in the delts, a little more sweep on the quads, like, you know, a little bit more of this definition that probably makes them appear a bit more muscular, which I'm okay with. I mean, I think conditioning is not something I'm ever like until the girls have striated glutes and bikini, which would be ridiculous. But, you know, having a bit more level of conditioning, I personally do like, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just from that posing of top 5 yesterday, they were all doing like a side pose.
Yeah.
Just the thickness of their legs from the side made me realize like it's just the leaps and bounds from just where that division has came from. I think it's going in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think one thing that is very important to take into account is there has been a massive evolution in the ability to pose for these girls as well.
Yes.
You know, like when bikini first came out, I mean, even classic physique, like, you know, any of these divisions, if you look at the evolution of the posing and how well they can display, like those girls, you know, in the bikini side pose, how well they know how to like position their side leg and their glute and things like this to like maximize the shape of their glute and stuff, like where before girls were just getting up there and fucking like standing there. Like, you know, they would do their little bikini pose, but they didn't know how to like manipulate their bodies, where now the art of posing is like so advanced now, you know, with so many posing coaches out there, and the quality of the competitors posing is so high that kind of it's made everyone level up. So I think, yes, the girls are more muscular for sure in bikini than when it first came out. But I don't think over the last few years it's evolved that much to any degree, really. I mean, like, I think a lot of these girls, if anything, like, you know, Laura Lee, for example, was getting a bit on the muscular side. And when she finally came down a little bit, then she won Olympia, you know? So I don't think it's necessarily like muscularity is taking precedence, especially in bikini, but conditioning a little more so. But I mean, it's hard because the girls that, what happens is the girls that are just better in every other way also maybe are a little leaner than everybody else in the show. So then when people try and chase them, they're like, okay, well, I need to be leaner, but that's not necessarily why they beat you in the first place. They beat you because they were just better bikini competitors, you know, like they have better glute shape and better tie-ins and, you know, better overall, you know, hourglass shape to the physique, where then they're attributing it to things that are tangibles that they can control, where, hey, maybe right now I can't control my physique, but I can be leaner, you know? So then they try and chase them on the facets that are in their immediate control, which is something like conditioning, you know?
Do you think Fit Model has with the criteria to meet Fit Model? And do you think it can evolve the way bikini has evolved? Do you think it has that criteria, it has that look? Because like posing's been, like you just said, posing has evolved so much within bikini, within wellness. Do you think Fit Model has enough of criteria to evolve into something where a little bit more holds a little bit higher of an aesthetic or a weight within competing?
I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, I don't think so. I think it's a little too close to bikini.
Right.
So I don't know if it's going to be able to really like have a foothold for itself as being like a class that's really like highly respected at the top pro level. But it's also tough to say, man. I mean, if people find a place in it, and if it gets one good champion that really develop, like, you know, like a Chris did for classic, if it finds someone that really can like catapult that sport into that class into the limelight, then it's definitely possible. But they don't even have it at the pro level yet, right?
Exactly.
It's just at the amateur level. So, I mean, it could happen. I mean, I probably would have said that for, you know, women's physique when it came out, being like, this is the fucking same thing as bodybuilding. What the fuck, you know, like, or, you know, a lot of these classes, like it's tough to say. So it's certainly possible, but in my mind, I think it's just the criteria is a little too narrow and a little too close to bikini. You know,
that's kind of how I feel too.
And I don't think it has quite an impressive enough look to make people really, really want to watch it. You know, I think it'll be appealing for people to compete in that, like, you know, especially at the amateur level. I think it'll be very appealing at the amateur level for girls that, you know, aren't at the bikini level, or, you know, don't think that they want to be that muscular if they think bikini is too muscular, whatever. But I don't think at the pro level it will find itself as much of a place, you know.
I'm still trying to see. A couple of weeks ago, just the amateur level for Fit Model was kind of, just viewing it from afar, it was kind of rough to see, like, okay, what are we actually looking for here, even at an amateur level?
Yeah, you know? I mean, any of these classes do take a while to kind of like sort themselves out.
Yeah.
You know, like even classic physique when it came out, I mean, you know, the guys that were winning at the beginning, like Darren Charles and shit, like, you know, these guys like weren't really that good in the division, but they were kind of like, okay, we don't quite know what we're looking for, and, you know, they kind of figured it out as time went on. So, you know, but like the first classic physique show Chris did, he came third out of 4 guys.
Right.
You know, I don't know if a lot of people know that. He did like a show in Miami just a few months after he turned pro. And there was only 4 guys in it, and Darren Charles won, Terrence Ruffin was second, Chris was third, and then some other guy was fourth. Yeah. So like even there, like they just didn't know what to do with a physique like this. Right. You know, like they just didn't know yet. You know, but then he went to Pittsburgh Pro the next year, where you have like guys like Steve judging and stuff like this, and they're like, wow, this guy fucking creams everybody. You know, right. So it's like it's just at the beginning when you had a bunch of different judges, they hadn't quite seen the look yet. The class wasn't super developed yet. And they just didn't know how to judge certain physiques. And then over time, you kind of figure that out. And then some champions establish themselves, and then people chase that look, and then it kind of, you know, finds its foothold, right?
But you like narrow that down by figuring out the criteria and evolving the criteria. And like there's more criteria in classic than men's physique. There's more criteria or a look that they're looking for in open than classic. I just don't think Fit Model has the amount of criteria for it to evolve. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, it just was good. It'll be really hard to judge it at the higher levels, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's just not enough, like you said, enough criteria and enough variance between the physiques that,
yeah,
you know, where the small nuances will be able to be judged well. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, there could be some girls that really embrace that look and really fit the look, and then people start to kind of trickle in to chase it, right? So it could happen. I mean, it's
no, for sure.
Sure. What's most underrated bodybuilder in the sport right now, across all divisions?
That's a great question.
Most underrated.
In the pro league?
Yeah. Who do you think someone who could be a dark horse?
Bonak.
No, Bonak's great though.
Yeah.
Such a good guy.
I mean, who I think is a dark horse and will be really good. He did Pittsburgh and he came second to Vito in Brazil. Is this Leandro Perez guy? If you've seen
Yes.
this.
Oh yeah.
This guy's fucking good, man. Like if this guy brings it in like another 5 pounds, he's one of the most complete guys competing out there. I mean, he's got good amount of muscle. Obviously, everyone bodybuilding can probably be bigger except for like Nick, you know.
Right.
But he's got great shape, good lines. He's kind of complete in every shot. He just needs to be a little bit harder. And I think if this guy figures out his conditioning, like if he got his conditioning to the level of like a fucking Nick or someone, or not even, but just a really high level of conditioning, I think this guy could definitely win some like, you know, some solid shows. You know, I think he could definitely battle with any of the guys in that kind of, you know, 7 through 12 at the Olympia, like second call out to beginning of the third call out. I definitely think that's a guy that if he figures that out and he could qualify for the Olympia and be a guy that shakes up with some names that we don't usually, you know, think about.
Let's say he figures that out, and then Beirut gets over to the States for the Olympia. What do you think about those two together?
I mean, Baruz is obviously fucking a really good bodybuilder. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a shame that he hasn't been able to get into an Olympia lineup because I think he would have a good impact in there.
Right.
You know, guys like him and Nathan missing out on Olympia lineups every year definitely hurts.
Nathan too. Yeah.
Definitely hurts the Olympia. I mean, those are two guys that are really, really good bodybuilders. But yeah, I mean, Baruz is amazing. I'm a huge fan of Baruz for sure. So, yeah, I mean, I see Leandro kind of in that same type of physique as that. You know, really balanced, good level of muscularity, has some good strong points, but he just doesn't have the conditioning yet of a guy like Baruz. You know, Baruz gets fucking inside out. So I think if he can get to that level of conditioning, he can definitely be in that same kind of ballpark as those guys, you know?
For sure. That's interesting. I wanted to ask that. Those are those physiques, man.
Yeah, they're crazy.
What do
I mean, think of how crazy the Olympia lineup is already, and you're still missing guys like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, if we get a Vito there and you get a fucking Baruz there and you get a Nathan there and get all these guys into this lineup. I mean, now the even conversation of making a top 10 at the Olympia becomes like, you have amazing bodybuilders not even getting in the top 10, you know, which like we haven't really had in some time. It's like, there's usually like a pretty clear cutoff of like, you know, after 10th place, the guys start to get like, not bad, like, but obviously the level starts to diminish a little bit, you know, to guys that, you know, win some shows, but, you know, are really still quite a far cry from that top 8, top 10 guys, you know?
Do you think Rami's done?
Yes.
Ooh.
You think he's done? Okay.
I don't think we'll ever see Ramy on stage again.
That's
sucks.
sad.
Do you think,
Sucks. Yeah.
speaking of like all these bodybuilders that are overseas that may not be able, they just have visa issues and everything. Do you think, like, what's your opinion? Do you think that the IFBB has any sway in visas or any responsibility of like, okay, got it.
No, I don't think they have any sway. I mean, you're talking about government organizations.
Right.
I don't give a fuck who
Or,
the IFBB is.
sorry, not sway.
Who the hell is he?
seriously.
I don't give
Like,
a
look,
fuck.
with any of these guys, when they are getting visas, I know that they are getting written letters and they're getting the support of the IFBB. Even when I had a US visa, I got it from them too. I mean, I had Tyler and Steve and like these guys all wrote me letters of recommendation. You know, like I got everything from the IFBB that I needed. And I know for sure a guy like fucking Hottie or, you know, or Ramy or Baruz are getting that and probably more. You know, I know they're getting the written support, but like to a government organization, what the fuck does that mean? Like, you know, it's if you're coming from a country that they just, you know, the tough thing is, you know, when you're coming from those countries and then you have someone that has the potential to have a career and make money in the country, then they get scared of letting them in. They'll just never fucking leave, you know? Yeah. So like, I think that's where the fear comes from. It's like, okay, if these guys come over here to do it this one competition, now we got to keep an eye on them that they might stay here forever fucking illegally, and we got to keep an eye on them, you know? So it's, you know, there's a lot more potential for them to make money. Their career's focused in here. So they want them to go through the channels of getting like, you know, working status in the United States, where I think becomes a little more difficult, right?
You kind of answered it how I was trying to ask it, but like I didn't know the IFBB was doing like letters of rec type thing.
Well, I mean, you ask them for it, they'll give it to you. I mean, like unless they really don't like you for some reason. But I mean, when I needed it, I mean, I messaged all those guys and just asked them, say, hey, and you know, this is what I need. And I gave them a template, but they all actually customized, wrote their letter. So I got even a letter from Jim Mannion, from Tyler, like whatever I got, whatever I needed. And they got me that, and I was able to get a visa status. I know it's obviously different when you're coming from fucking Iran. But do I think that they're getting the same support from the IFBB if it's requested? 100%. I don't think they have any problem giving that to any athlete, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
What does Nick Walker have to do to win an Olympia?
He just has to really be on top of his midsection control, you know? Like even yesterday at New York, I think he, as a whole, in a lot of ways, was actually better than Pittsburgh. His conditioning from the back was definitely a level up, but his midsection control wasn't as good. So I think if we can see him, you know, especially like on his front double, you know, really get those abs situated, or find a comfortable place to make it look at the best, you know, and really be, you know, because I see him kind of fiddling with it, where he's kind of changing between the idea of what makes it look the smallest and what maybe makes it look the best. And when he does like his front double and he kind of like squeezes the sides in and he elongates it, it does look the smallest. But in my opinion, when he crunches all the way down, like gets all the air out and really shows the development of his abs, which is really good, it looks the best. So like it's a tough place, and I think he doesn't quite know where to go with it yet. So I think, you know, just being, you know, making sure that midsection is in check as possible, and especially in transition. I think that, you know, hurt him a little bit in Pittsburgh. It was really good in all the shots. His midsection looked awesome. But like in the moments of excitement, you know, not even just transitioning between poses, that was actually pretty good. But like, you know, when they'd be doing a fucking, you know, comparison between him and Derek, and then, you know, they'd be like going to hit him most muscular, and he'd be hyping the crowd up and let it out for a second, you know?
Yeah.
I think things like that, especially at the Olympia level, when there's other guys that won't be doing that, will hurt him. But I think, for him, it's just all midsection control. Cause I mean, he's got all the muscle he needs, you know, obviously more legs would never hurt anybody, like quads from the front, but I think he has made some really good improvements there. He has more arms and shoulders than anybody in the planet. His adductors and hamstrings are pretty much as good as they get. And his back is excellent. So, I mean, you know, it's not like a ton of feedback you can give him other than what would improve his physique the most, which is just midsection control. You know, maybe you could say he needs a little more chest, but it's still very good, you know?
Right. Still can compete. Okay.
I was going to say, if you had to be a betting man based on, you know, the looks over the past year, you know, we've seen Samson at his best, we've seen Derek, we've seen Nick. Who would you put right now in like your top 6 from what you've seen over the past year and a half?
I would. I'm not going to give any order, but I'll just pick the guys, and then maybe I can order it after. But I still think you have to have Derek, Hottie, Samson, Nick are like the definite top 4. And then after that, then you're kind of getting into like Martin, Andrew, Hunter, but Hunter's not competing this year, right? So I mean, that's kind of your next group of guys after that. So yeah, I mean, and then it depends. I mean, other guys, you know, who did we have after those guys then? I mean, then you're kind of into like Brandon Curry, obviously is still a guy that can shake it up in those guys, you know. I think a good version of Brandon can still absolutely compete with like a Martin, you know, Bonac too.
Yep.
You know, Bonac too is still in that group, you know. So, I mean, I mean, there's a fucking lot of good guys out there, but I think that top 6 to me, if I'm betting money today, I'm going to put, Hottie, Derek, Samson, Nick, Hunter, and Andrew. Yeah. Or Martin and Andrew.
Where that line of separation is a little bit with those guys, It's what it's felt like this past year seeing those guys.
Yeah, like I think Brandon and Bonac are still in that group just at the back end. You know, like the Brandon that was at the Arnold, I think can absolutely still compete with any of those guys. You know, especially the guys like Martin and Andrew. You know, I think that they're still close enough to those guys. You know, Brandon has won the Olympia. Like he's still a very good bodybuilder, and he was really good this year. So, you know, you definitely can't discount him. And obviously, Bonac's had like a massive resurgence in his career. So, I think his conditioning wasn't as good in New York as we've seen it. You know, it definitely from the back still left a little bit to be desired. But you know, I think for a show like the Olympia, if he crank it in, I think he can definitely still be in a mix in that top 8, you know?
Yeah.
Going back to like Pit Pro and Detroit Pro, we always talk about how if we had the chance to ever like commentate for a sport, how sick it would be. How has that been? How fun has that been?
That's great. I mean, it's a good time, you know. It was a little hard doing men's physique when I'm the only guy that did anything talk about men's physique. I'm like, Fuad and Dennis James, you can tell like these guys are like, I don't want to fucking talk about men's physique. You know?
Yeah. I was gonna say there was a moment
I'm trying to talk about men's physique. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. You know?
Yeah.
I remember during the Pit Pro, I was watching and you guys, it was just silent for like 5 straight minutes, and then you would chime in a little bit and be like, great midsection on this guy.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, look, I know how to judge men's physique. I've done it at a lower level and stuff like that, and I definitely know how to decipher, but I don't know a lot of these players, you know? So like knowing their history and knowing their, you know, accolades in it, I definitely know some of the top guys for sure. I mean, most of those guys in the first group, I did know them and know kind of what they've done in their career. But it's definitely harder to commentate on something that you don't have the same level of knowledge on as you do bodybuilding or classic, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun. I mean, you know, doing with Fuad and Dennis, who I obviously I both really like. So it was a fun time. You know, it was good, and you know, it was obviously an awesome opportunity to get to do that for the first year Pittsburgh had open as well, right?
When you're commentating like that, is it pretty easy for you to kind of turn the fan off in your head as you're observing? Or are you trying to be like as unbiased as possible to what you're seeing?
Oh yeah, that's not hard for me. I mean, I don't have any emotion tied to any of the guys competing. You know, like
you're
not
really honest. Yeah.
I'm not. I just say what I see, and there's no emotion tied to it. It's just kind of my personal opinion. And I'm not like any nicer or meaner to anybody. I'm not disrespect. I used to be a lot more rough with my opinions like 3, 4, 5 years ago on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think I found a happy medium of like giving good critique to the guys, but like still being like, you know, respectful. So I think it's something you do need to learn a little bit, or you end up being like a fucking Sean Ray where everyone's like, fucking shut up, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like negativity in every fucking word. And I don't think anybody wants to listen to that either, even if you think you're being constructive. So I think it is a fine balance between that, you know, like even if guys don't look the best, you know, finding something that's good on them and giving them a good, you know, praise for something that is good about their physique before you say the negatives as well. I don't think it should just be all negatives for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, I had a lot of fun doing it for sure, but it's definitely not hard for me, you know, like I'm friendly enough with all those guys that I don't feel like any need to like give one guy, you know what I mean? Yes. Like a more benefit to anything than another, which I wouldn't do anyways, but like I like and respect all those guys, and I have no problem just saying it how it is. And I know that the guys respect my opinion enough that they're not going to like, if I do say something needs to improve, I think that they take that as like, okay, that's good. Not like, fuck this guy, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And I think your delivery matters in that, you know?
For sure.
We talked about because we talk about all the shows and stuff, but it kind of feels weird when we're sitting here as amateurs. Well, I guess Nick's pro, but like we're a bunch of fucking 230-pound amateurs commenting on bodybuilding. But
yeah, I mean, look, man, most of the judges, a good percentage of them, a lot of them have never competed. A lot haven't competed at the pro level. I mean, even some of the best coaches. I mean, like Hani was a low-level amateur natural fucking bodybuilder, like still one of the best coaches in history, you know?
Yeah. Or
like Chad or, you know, Chris Aceto. Like these weren't like top-level pros that were 290 pounds to be able to, you know, assess physiques or critique physiques. I mean, like I think Tyler is an amazing judge, and he's never stepped on a bodybuilding stage in his life, you know?
Right, that's true.
So, you know, I don't think that accolades and conversely, I think there's a lot of bodybuilders, you know, and I see this in the comments of people being like, who are these judges? You know, when Tyler will give this feedback, like, who are these guys never stepped on a stage, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I also know a lot of guys that have been to the Olympia that couldn't judge a bodybuilding show to save their goddamn life. Yeah, they actually know nothing about bodybuilding other than being a bodybuilder, you know? Like, you could put 10 physiques and they really wouldn't know what the fuck how to judge them at all, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, you know, I don't think that being a bodybuilder I think it can help because you're around it and you're in that world and you can see what good and bad physiques are. But to be able to recognize the nuances of things and not just be biased towards your style of physique, I think is hard for people. You know, what you get with a lot of bodybuilders is they just favor the type of physique that they are, you know, like, and I think that's tough for guys to get away from.
A segment we want to start doing too, to kind of give back to some amateur, like the under, pro card level guys, is we're going to start talking about national shows. We want to start bringing on like, guys like yourself and Paul. We've talked about it with Paul a couple times, but bringing on like judges that can come help us, and we're going to bring up like amateur level after national level shows. Bring up their physiques and give feedback and what we think.
That'd be cool.
And shout them out. So if you're ever interested in that,
no, for sure.
Would love to have you back on.
I think that's something that's missing. Well,
I think that's something that's missing is like that that understanding of
what
you need. I mean, you get the feedback from national judges, but they're seeing a fucking 300 physiques.
It's tough for them to really remember and give accurate feedback. Like especially if you're coming to them immediately after the show. Like if it's after the show and you're getting like paying for the feedback where they can watch the footage back and then give you an assessment. But like if you're coming up to them right after the stage, being like, "Hey, what'd you think?" It's like, bro, I judged 600 people today. Like, if you're at North Americas and you're coming up and asking a judge where there's like 40 people in every class and there's fucking every division, it's like, I don't fucking remember. You know what I mean? Like, I have no goddamn idea who you are. Like, that's fucking hard, man. So,
no, and that's why we want to do it too. Is just like to have fun with it, give some kids an opportunity to get shouted out on a podcast, and like have some real judges come on and chat with us about it.
So for sure.
We're pretty excited about that for show season.
I think I just think it's a good idea too, because Tyler's done a great job at the Pro League of recapping shows and what they're looking for. But I just think, especially, everywhere, a lot of the people that compete at national shows just depend on what the judge says that they don't give a fuck about. Like Iain said, they don't remember you. So they don't really know what they should actually improve upon. Their coach might say one thing. Somebody else might say another thing. And I think that feedback, when it comes to... there needs to be some better quality on stage at some point, And I think that even just in our area, if we can just help at least somebody out, that improves just the community even around here a little bit more, and instead of people being a little bit more realistic with how they approach even their season or their improvement season.
And maybe maybe this is a rude question to ask, but
let it rip.
For amateur competitors, when they're going asking for feedback, I think it's different for a lot of like bikini or something like that. But when you're a bodybuilder and you're going to a judge and asking for feedback, like if you have small arms, don't you know that you have small arms? Like if you are out of shape, like don't you know what you saw the other guys in the show that were in better condition? Don't you know, like, or, like I've never in my body, I do think there is some value in it. Like say you're at the higher level or like a bikini where it's very close. Like, hey, why did this girl beat me? Like, what can I improve? Where there is some small nuances. But like in bodybuilding, I think things are pretty cut and dry.
Iain, a lot of people are unrealistic with that.
Like unless you get to the level of like Nick versus Derek. If I'm Nick, I'm going to Tyler after that. Be like, what did I have to do to beat that there? Like, how did I lose that? I thought I was dominant after prejudging. Like, where did I go wrong? Like, how did I lose that? I'm getting feedback all day. But like when I was an amateur bodybuilder, I'm like 99% of the time, everything needs to improve. Like unless you're fucking Derek, which even then he has things to improve, which Derek knows he has to improve his quads. He has to improve his arms. Like these guys know, and I think it's hard for me to conceptualize being a lower level bodybuilder and not being able to see your weaknesses to some point.
Hold on, Iain. We have literally had someone tell us they have the same waist as C-Bomb. They don't know why. They don't look the same in shots.
And
it's because he has 50 pounds more muscle in all the right places.
People just aren't realistic with anything, especially. Oh my god!
What you say is like. So we talked about this with Fuad too. Like, what did we say? 73% of people don't have the ability to actually self-reflect.
I know it's
crazy statistical fact.
It's a crazy statistical number that most people in this planet cannot self-reflect and see.
And I guess I can definitely see that. But then like for me, it's like if you just did a bodybuilding show and then you look at the pictures and in that lineup you're 6th place and there's 5 other guys that beat you. Okay, maybe you'd be unsure why one guy beat you there that was 5th place or 4th place. We're like, I could have made a case for me being 4th, but like there's going to be a reason why you look at the 1st place guy and be like, okay, his chest is bigger, his arms are better, he's in better condition, his shape is a little better. Like you can see that to a point, like it's crazy to me. Like I don't know. When I was an amateur, and even till I was actually at the Olympia level, I never asked for feedback. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't, but sometimes you need to have a little bit of like self-reflection and honesty with your physique here of like just looking and be like, why did I lose? What was the 1st place guy? And be just objective with your physique. Like until I was at the Olympia level, I just thought everything had to improve. Yeah. Like if I'm not winning every show I'm doing, well, then everything needs to be better. Like my arms need to be better, my back, my chest, my legs, like everything needs to improve. This is bodybuilding. Make everything better, you know?
So many people need to say something. Like judges say, I got to improve this, this, and this, just so they can announce that on social media.
Yeah.
You know, and social media is like,
and for any bodybuilder, do you think that any part of yours is perfect?
No.
You know? Because like realistically, I could give you feedback that just everything needs to be better. It's like, well, my legs are good. It's like, yeah, your legs are good compared to the rest of your physique, but they still need to be better.
Yes,
you know? It's like, yeah, your legs are okay, but that's because you have no upper body, you know? Your arms are fucking 14 inches and your legs are a little bit better than that, you know? So it's like, sure, yeah, there is things that are in disproportion, but that doesn't mean that everything doesn't need to still improve, you know?
No, I was going to say, idealistic. I wish we had this earlier in because just from like a coaching perspective, I can't tell you how many clients of mine that have never stepped on stage or even done like a national level show that will message me and be like, I need a specific style of training program because they think they're too big in one area and they're too small in the other. And I have to just like lose a lung every single month yelling at like, just because everyone I have is amateur level. And I'm just like, everything you have needs to fucking
everything
improve.
Needs to be better.
Everything needs
to tell me what do I need to improve? Everything. Literally everything needs to be better. You know?
People don't realize.
It's so fucking frustrating.
I've had amateur level guys, you know, like national level guys, well even, you know, low, like guys that were just national level turning into pro, you know, where I've had guys that, had insane legs, but like a very underdeveloped upper body where I'm like, but they knew it, you know, they were very aware of it. And we made adjustments where we trained legs a lot less, you know, like, we do need for you to be more competitive now at this level. You do need your upper body to catch up in relation. So let's stop training your legs a bit, you know, and let's put that effort and resources and energy into your upper body more. But that's when they already had legs that were like good top tier pro legs. It wasn't like their legs were like shitty, but just better than their upper body, where it's like, we're going to ease off the gas of your legs. It's like, let's just keep everything growing. And then once you get to a point where something has created such a massive disproportion that it is going to hinder you on stage, well, then we can back off. But almost no one is at that point, you know, like there's I've judged a lot of amateur shows. Very few times have I seen where there's a guy that has such a body part that is so overdeveloped compared to everything else that it's taken away from their physique. And even then, if a guy has monster legs at an amateur show, I'm like, it's probably helping you at this level, you know? Even if your upper body sucks, I wouldn't have preferred to see your legs smaller, you know? If your legs were smaller with this upper body, I wouldn't even notice you to begin with. So it's like, just keep your giant legs, keep making them better, so at least you have something for the judge to be like, okay, that's sick, you know? And just try and grow everything in the meantime, you know?
But I've lost clients for even saying, like, approaching it in a very good way of, hey, we need to build the entire silhouette first. Like, you're not ready. They get in their head. They get so... Man, you know, I'm telling you, man, sometimes some of these amateurs get so involved with social media and social media validation that they want to always be in prep, always be doing something for their YouTube channel, for you know, road to pro this, road to pro that they forget why they're doing it in the first place. They forget what their criteria is that they have to work up to for classic, for bodybuilding, for open, whatever, that they fire coaches over it. That they get so unrealistic with what they need
people
to
want
make
yes man,
improvements
you know?
on. Exactly. And it's annoying.
Well, you can relate that even into training. That was something that I just thought of is like, I heard a guy the other day, I just overheard a dude by the dumbbell rack doing some lateral raises, and he was explaining to a kid. And the one guy was just like, well, yeah, you know, if you do the lateral raises to this height, you're going to get your traps involved and this and that. And I hear so many clients that'll like try to like go so specific with the biomechanics of a training movement. And I'm like, oh, did you think your delts or your traps are too big? Like I didn't know that if you accidentally got your traps involved on a lateral raise, that you're gonna look like fucking Tom Hardy in Warrior next time you're on stage.
Like when my shoulders were at their best, I was like lateral raising like 80-pound dumbbells. That was 100% shoulder, but then also 100% trap. You know, they just all grew like great. You know? Like,
that's great. Yeah, but you'll have people out there that are like, oh, but you don't want to hit that right because then you won't isolate the deltoid enough when you're doing it. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, just grab the heavier fucking weight and do it.
You're a $150. Shut up.
It still had to lift the dumbbell to here, and then maybe if you shrug. But you're still moving it with your fucking lateral delt.
Bro,
you know?
sometimes the people
Luke, we got to clip all that for every one of the people in the area.
Sometimes the people that put so much emphasis on the biomechanics, or that's all that they
it's a common
talk about
trend.
online.
It's a common
they
trend.
just confuse the shit out of beginners.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's just like, that's not how I first got into training. It's like, bro, the proof's in the pudding when it comes to that shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But also,
No,
when I'm
like,
doing
look,
lateral
I'm
raises-
all for guy. Like, if it's not confusing you and you have a good understanding of, you know, the biomechanics and it is like things, but I think a lot of the times what you see is people get wrapped up in it and then they lose the plot in terms of the effort and intensity.
That's what I'm
you know?
saying.
So it's like, yeah, I see guys that are training with a lot of great things. Their form is good, their tempos are great, but then I'm like, they're stopping 4 RIR, you know? It's like,
Right.
bro,
Yeah.
like,
Hell no.
you know what I mean? Like, it's stuff like that. And I think someone has convinced them that sub-maximal stuff has more benefit. And I just have never seen that actually work in reality, you know?
No, I
I
totally
was
agree.
gonna say, I think Jordan Peters, if you saw his post the other day,
I
on
saw it. I
Instagram,
reposted it, yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, because it's just like I saw that and I'm like, for the love of Christ, I wish everyone at the amateur level could
Yeah.
read this and really digest on
For
this
the
one.
listeners-
Yeah, I mean, look, if
for
I
the
saw
listeners, what
guys
was the
doing,
post?
you know, hard exercises with perfect biomechanical form at proper angles and doing it all perfectly and training it at a fucking Jordan Peterson.
That's the dream.
Jordan
That's the
Peters.
dream. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson. I always call him Jordan Peterson, but that's the fucking Jordan Peters.
The therapist.
Yeah. Level of intensity. I'd be like, great. Fucking kill it, homie. Like, you've done your research, you know the movements, and you're fucking training it hard. Then I've got all the props for you in the world. But like, it's to find both is usually very rare. You know, in a lot of cases, what guys are really delving hard into that biomechanic stuff is because it's almost like a way they think they can beat the system of effort.
Of
you know?
going hard.
Yeah. They're like, if I do this all perfectly, then, you know, or they want to, it's like a confirmation bias of like, they didn't like training hard. So then they find someone that says that you don't need to go all the way to failure every time. And that all this biomechanic stuff is the answer. So then it's almost like, okay, it's validating what I was already feeling and what I want to do. So it's just a confirmation bias, you know? It's like when you ask 100 people, 99 of them tell you what you don't want to hear, and one tells you what you want to hear, so you follow that, you know?
Right.
I don't know if you watched the videos that of the hostile tour in Mexico, but every every like event or Q&A we did, every one of them, there's at least a couple of people that asked about the science behind things, asked about what about fatigue and recovery, axial fatigue. A lot of these kids were 21 years old, 20 years old, 18 years old, and it's
Just
like
fucking move
And I'm
weight.
like,
Samson's like, I've never worried about that in my fucking life. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like,
That's literally the answer every single time. But it was wild for me to realize it's everywhere.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. All right, we're gonna start wrapping up here, and we've taken up a ton
Ton
of
of
your
your
time.
time.
Sunday.
Yeah, sorry.
So a couple like just rapid fire things. What's your
Sure.
top movie as of right now? What was your best favorite movie of this last year?
Oh my God, that's tough. Fuck.
We're a huge
It
movie
becomes hard
podcast.
when you watch so many movies to like even remember what was good that you've watched in the last while, you know? What have I even
So,
seen lately?
We'll give you a recommendation real quick. Paul said Thunderbolt sucked. We totally disagree as a podcast.
you
Yeah.
see
Okay,
Go
I'll
see
watch that.
Thunderbolt.
I haven't seen it yet.
Go
no.
see
Oh, it's
Thunderbolt.
Terrific.
so good.
Terrific.
Do you like Marvel?
Did you guys see Sinners?
No.
Is it
we
good?
want to.
It's one of those ones you're gonna think it's awesome or you're gonna think it's fucking retarded. So
What,
I mean,
what do you think? What do you think?
I thought it was pretty good. Melissa hated it. So, but she also didn't. Do you guys know what it is?
No.
So isn't the story about, isn't each character actually representing like the actual sins themselves?
Okay, but do you know what genre of movie it actually?
please,
No. I saw Haley Steinfeld saying some few things.
I want to hear it. What is it? Let it spill.
It's a vampire movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay, so you did know that.
Yeah,
See, a lot
yeah.
of people don't know because in the trailers and stuff, it makes that not apparent because that's kind of the twist of the movie. And I knew if I told Melissa that it was a vampire movie, she wouldn't go see it. So when she went and saw it, and all of a sudden fucking people start being vampires, she's like, what the fuck is going on here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you don't know that going into it, it could be kind of like a, what the fuck is this shit?
Oh, no,
if
we
you think
knew
it's
that.
like, if you think it's like a, what's that Tom Hardy movie where they're fucking like
Oh, they're like
Monster movie.
bootleggers or something.
yeah, the bootleggers. Like, if you saw the trailer, you might think it's like that.
Yep.
You know,
Sure.
like it's the fucking, the two brothers that have been gone to fucking Philadelphia and
during
they come back. and fucking-
Prohibition.
Yep.
yeah, and they're fucking doing gangster shit.
Yeah.
So you might think it's that, but it's certainly not that. It is in an aspect, but then it's a fucking vampire movie.
Yeah.
Seeing Haley Steinfeld as a vampire really had me in a chokehold. I'm not gonna lie.
Zach was like,
But no,
oh,
it was
aware.
all right.
I'm well
I mean,
aware.
it's one of those ones you're either gonna love or hate. What else have I watched lately? Fuck, man.
Are you a big like trilogy guy in terms of like classic movies?
Like what? Give me an example.
Lord of
Lord
the
of the
Rings.
Rings.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, I love those. Yeah.
Oh
Obviously,
fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Lord of the
okay.
Rings.
Star Wars.
Star Wars, I love too. Yeah.
Okay.
Indiana Jones. That's what I grew up.
Yeah,
with.
I've seen all those. I'm a bigger Star Wars guy. Like I watch all the Star Wars stuff like that is even like Andor and like stuff like that. That's shit
Our
that's
producer's
awful.
Our
picking up.
producer's
Now-
picking up
now
the
you're
microphone.
Our producer's a huge Star Wars guy.
Yeah, so like
My
stuff like
ears
that,
just
I'll
perked
watch
up.
most of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
What else? I obviously like all the Marvel shit like that.
Right.
Any of the Avengers and stuff like that. I'm big into that.
You'll like Thunderbolts then.
You will.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah,
It's a
I'm
great
trying to
movie.
think of something that I've seen in
Have
the
you ever
last
watched
year.
the show
That, like,
Invincible?
I've watched a good chunk of it, but I haven't watched all of it. That's a good show, though.
We're
Yeah.
a big
Dude.
we're a big Invincible.
Finish
Yeah,
the
that's a
newest
good-
season. You'll
Who's
be
your
fucking
favorite
hooked.
superhero?
Oh, favorite superhero.
Just banding him with
I
questions.
just need to know.
I said rapid fire. I said
I'm
rapid
so
fire.
bad at I'm so bad at like forming opinions on these things. I just watch everything and then just like
That's totally
mash it
okay.
into my mind. My favorite superhero, I don't know.
Out of Marvel and DC.
He has a Batman tattoo, so we know his.
Yeah.
Ian,
You're
this
a big
guy
Batman guy.
got a brand new car.
Big Batman guy.
And within 48 hours, he puts a fucking Batman sticker on the window.
Batman.
And I'm like, I walk up to Devo's house today. I'm like, oh, that's Zach's new car. It looks pretty sick. See, it's a big old yellow sticker on the side. I'm like, of course, only this guy.
Yeah, you know what it says.
That's sick.
Yeah. It's tough for me to even think of fucking ones that like I'm not like a guy that has like strong opinions of like I really like this guy, I really like that guy, or
yeah.
like
I do.
that movie was like I just I like a lot of things and like kind of like everything in a degree, which is probably bad,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean with movies, I'm trying to think of something in the last year that I've seen that like really stood out to me, and I'd probably need to go look at my fucking like watch history to remind myself on some of them. Or we talk about so many on the podcast, but fuck yeah, I can't remember.
Sounds
But-
like
All
a
right,
movie
if you had to
marathon.
recommend a TV show, what would you recommend out of your all-time great?
oh, these are another hard questions for
Sorry.
me.
Okay.
We could ask him the hardest coaching questions, but these ones are
Let
gonna
me
stump
think
him.
of a show that I've watched. I mean,
It is really hard to like.
Peaky Blinders.
it's
so
hard to
many
like
on the
think of them on the spot
On
of
the
like
spot,
because I can think
yeah.
of a million shows I liked, like any of the fucking Star Wars ones like Mandalorian or shows like that I really
okay.
liked, or
That's a good one.
or I could think of fucking series that I've watched like over the years that were really good. But it's fucking tough to remember like something that stands out as like my one favorite. But
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. We'll
Last
keep
of
moving.
Us? You
All
watching
right.
The Last
I'll
of
have to
Us?
try and think of like a definite answer, not just give you like a cop out answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We'll move on to food. Favorite cheat
Okay.
meal.
Here we go.
McDonald's
Okay.
or Five Guys.
all
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
all right.
Fuck yeah.
All
Fuck
right.
yeah, yeah.
He's
yeah.
talking. Now he's talking.
What's your go-to order at McDonald's?
That's great.
And McDonald's, I'm ordering like a bunch of double cheeses, and then I'll get like maybe one chicken sandwich just to make myself feel healthy.
They're selling
yeah,
chicken
yeah,
strips
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
so funny.
So like when I was competing, I would go and I'd get like 4 double cheeses, and then usually a Big Mac or a or some kind of like chicken sandwich. Yeah.
Does McDonald's in Canada taste better than the States?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Go-to
The,
sweet.
the UK has the best McDonald's though.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, UK McDonald's is like a whole different level than everywhere else. It's definitely way
I know
better.
where we're going.
I was gonna
UK
say,
and
yeah,
UK
exactly.
guys will agree with that. They told me that when I went there with the Arnold UK the other year, and I was like, no way. And then we ate it, and it was like we ate it like fucking a shitty time of day to get good McDonald's, like stuff that'd been sitting on the burner, and it was like way better than North American stuff. Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right. Last one. Go-to sweet. You're getting a sweet tonight. What are you getting?
Ben Jerry's.
Ice
I'm
cream,
not like a
baked
big
goods.
can. It would be ice cream for sure. Then, yeah.
Okay.
If we're counting ice cream as a sweet, then that's like the definite 100%. I mean, I'm a big ice cream guy. But it's weird. Like over years of bodybuilding and like trying to limit myself from that stuff, it like my sweet tooth like disappeared.
Sure.
Really?
You know? Yeah. Like when I was a kid, I was like a big sweet tooth guy. Like loved candy and like fucking like I was obsessed with like Skittles and shit. You know?
Sure.
Like, and then after time, it's like you'd think it would almost go the other way because like I didn't have it for so long that I'd want it.
Yeah.
But it was like almost that I like didn't have stuff like that so often. Like I was so infrequent that I did that over time, it's like my body just like stopped thinking about it or stopped wanting it, you know? So like if I was going to go eat something shitty, it would generally be like, like go eat fucking sushi or like Five Guys or McDonald's or something like that. And like the sweet stuff wouldn't be like always immediate of like, ooh, I want that too. Where like my wife, like if she's eating like a meal out, she's fucking having 15 desserts after that, you know?
Fuck yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
As she
I'm
should.
like, I'm
As
on.
she should.
Yeah, I'm like you. These guys will be hanging out or something, watching a fight night or smoking, and then, or even if we just get done, it's late, we're playing video games or some shit. They're like, "You guys hungry for this, and this?" And then it'll come to me, And be like, Nick, you want to go get it? I'm like, no, I'm going to head out. I'm going to go eat a meal. And then these fuckers get so frustrated that it's like I'm the tiebreaker.
I think I recall you had a piece of cheesecake this weekend.
Yeah, dude. 100% I did. But not with you guys.
Fuck you.
Never with us. Yeah. Anyways, all right, Ian. We always do final thoughts around the table, so we're going to start with Zach and we'll end with you. Right. So, Zach, final thoughts for Ian and the listeners.
Nah, Ian, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, like you were one of the bodybuilders that I really looked up to coming up. I ate the hot chip too, and it was fucking terrible.
Oh yeah, did you? How'd that go for you?
It was awful. I can send you the clip because
I want to see it. Yeah.
You can just see me there. Just
it's like 2 weeks ago.
Did you prepare for it, or did you have like serious digestive ramifications?
Tell them about.
So I had to come in as the safety officer of the podcast, and as the oldest one on the podcast. I text him. I'm like, "Are you ready for this? Did you prepare your stomach?" He goes, "No. I haven't eaten anything." I'm like,
"Oh my god, no!"
I was like, "You are not allowed to come over here until you get food in your system because I will not allow you to eat that shit if you do not have anything." So then we had him go grab Dunkin' Donut sandwiches for him.
Yeah.
So he put down 2 sandwiches, and then you did pretty good.
Yeah, I did good. It was just, oh my god, the taste. It wasn't even like a taste. It was literally just like I couldn't feel my mouth.
Yeah.
It was so hot.
You just sit there for like 15 minutes. Your mouth is just like fucked.
Yeah.
If you just like at least like accept that like, hey, this sucks, but it'll be over soon. It's like, it's not going to hurt me. And you just sit there. Like, I just sat there for 15 minutes and just drooled, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I said to myself, because I had talked to people before that said, don't try and do anything like if you think like milk or ice cream, they'll all will make it worse. So just don't even try and fuck with it. Yeah. They're like, just sit there and drool and just like let it pass. If you can just get through it, it'll die off. If you try and do anything in, you'll extend it. So like, it might give you a momentary, but what?
Breathing through my mouth hurt.
Oh yeah, you can't. Like, you kind of have to be like,
hurt.
Yeah. Like I sat over like a garbage can, just drooled into a garbage can.
I had a garbage can right next to me.
Spitting in one the whole time.
That's it. You're just drooling and spitting, and like you can't really talk or like really breathe in heavy, or it just is like fire, you know.
No, I went silent that segment because
you sit there in silence. Yeah.
What we made him do though, no, you didn't go silent. You kept asking us what questions we asked because we made him do a Q&A.
Oh yeah,
the entire time.
Yeah.
He's like,
So
we'd ask
hard.
the question.
So hard.
He wouldn't respond. He'd be like, wait, what?
I couldn't remember
So funny.
Yeah, it's hard to think. Yeah,
I would drink water and just kind of keep it in my mouth, and that worked to some degree. But yeah, no.
Yeah, it works while it's in your mouth, but then it's like you spit it out. It's kind of spreads it all around and coats it differently. It's like I'm happy I just did nothing, you know, because it almost seemed like more of a flex where I'm like did nothing, but the people like. I think people are thinking that I wasn't giving myself AIDS when I think in reality it actually made it easier, you know?
Yeah, no, I was nervous as hell, but when they said you did it, I'm like, all right, I have to do it.
Yeah. Ian, I sent you the clip on the Dumbbells Doobies page. You got to watch it.
But yeah, no, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, hope you can come on again.
Yeah, of course.
Final thoughts.
My final thoughts can be a question for you, but for the listeners, what's one thing that you could, a piece of advice for life, bodybuilding, whatever, because I had questions submitted from just some people that I asked on my team group chat. A lot of them were relationship questions. You can answer it this way too. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to the world? Just if the best thing you could give right after this podcast for most people to take forward, digest, sit with it, and implement it into their life.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. I did a podcast the other day, and I answered a similar question. It's something I've heard Chris talk a lot about. That's like really resonated with me over the years, and I think it's like a big lesson, especially for people. You know, bodybuilding, but even just life outside that is like. Not be afraid to like feel the good and the bad, you know, like I think in bodybuilding, I like try to like, you know, push out so many things and like you don't really move through things well. It's like to feel the good at its highs, you also have to feel the bad at its lows, you know, and that's one thing that when I got on the other side of bodybuilding, like my career felt like it happened so fast. And I honestly remember not very much of the moments, like they kind of feel fleeting in my memory because I pushed away all the shitty stuff happening. So then the highs even themselves didn't feel that exciting because I kind of was like at this monotone level in the middle instead of like really embracing the highs and the lows and like learning from them as they came, you know? So if there's one thing I'd say to people is like, don't be afraid to like feel and like sit in the shit sometimes and like let it better you, you know? Like don't try and like, you know, okay, like I have no time to feel shitty. I got to fucking train or do this. Like sit there with the feelings like, okay, why do I feel this? And like, how do I work through this and like try and be better from it? And like, the more you can sit in the shit, the more you'll be able to easier move through it. And the more the good moments will feel like you'll be able to actually enjoy them, you know? Right. Like for me, a lot of the best moments in bodybuilding for me felt so like almost inconsequential versus like I wish I like felt them a lot more, felt the highs and the joy of them a lot more. But I think the reason I didn't is because I'd shut down so much of the lows. So it was kind of like lost in the mix,
Thank you for that, man.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Appreciate that.
Lance, final thought?
Appreciate you for coming on, man. Been a big fan of yours for a very long time. So this is an absolute highlight for me, and not only in my life and the podcast. You're the reason I love deadlifting, so appreciate what you're doing, man.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you.
Yeah. No, dude, this has been we have had you, we've had Paul, we've had Fouad, some of our biggest idols in the industry.
Seriously.
So thank you for taking the time. For our listeners, really soak this stuff in. This is fucking awesome for you to just give an amateur level group your time and on a Sunday. So appreciate you, man. You're always welcome back. Like I said, we're going to be doing these national reviews. So even if we have you on for 15, 20 minutes.
No, for sure.
We're going to have fun with that. Best of luck. I hope to hear you guys commentating on more shows. It's fucking
It's been
sick.
awesome. It's been awesome.
We get the Olympia next. Got to do the Olympia now, set the bar high,
Let's go.
I really appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun. So we'll definitely want to come back.
Final thoughts for the listeners, Iain. We'll hand it to you.
That's my final thoughts. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, this is a fun thing you got, and your vibe is cool, and I think you guys asked good questions that I really enjoyed. Made it an enjoyable podcast to do. So, awesome. Thank you guys, and I think what you guys are doing, and kind of how you ask a mix of questions with personal things and bodybuilding things and things that help younger bodybuilders, I think is a really good value. So I appreciate you guys having me on, and I definitely hope to come back.
Absolutely, man.
Appreciate
Fuck
you.
yeah, you're released.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, guys. We'll see you later.